I'm going to be speaking to you primarily about our Reliance Gold project located we're located in British Columbia, and it's an emerging discovery in an historic gold camp. That's our standard corporate disclosure. I will be making some forward-looking statements. I'll leave my corporate overview till later in the slide show, but Endurance Gold basically owns 100% owned core assets. One is our Elephant Mountain Gold Project in central Alaska, where we've got pretty interesting wide zones of gold mineralization, a low grade, typical of these kinds of systems. John's already mentioned our Bandito rare earth niobium project in the southeastern Yukon within the Liard gas basin area, and I'll have a few slides on that, but the focus of this presentation will be on the Reliance Gold Project, which is where our exploration and funding focus is for the company. Reliance Project's located 4 hours summer drive north of Vancouver in the Braylorn Orogenic Gold Camp, and east of the Braylorn Orogenic Gold Camp is that well-known Spencer's Bridge belt for epithermal type gold systems, but we're in a camp that's focused on orogenic, which is basically a younger type of gold system similar to the Archean orogenic gold projects. It's a new high-grade orogenic discovery. It's analogous. What we have, because of a certain type of chemical signature, is similar to the Fosterville gold mine in a productive camp. The project we're on has never been systematically explored, despite being in a camp that's been active since, in production since the 1860s or so. And we've got a drill discovery with near-surface intersections like 15.7 grams over 24 meters in this other intersection I mentioned here. The key discovery we've made is called the Eagle area. We've now defined that over about 550-meter trend, and it's open for expansion, especially at depth and along trend, and in these new steep feeder structures. So I guess the key point about what's an epizonal orogenic system, it's essentially a younger exposure in these younger terrains like we're dealing with here in British Columbia, where you still have the preservation of the upper levels of orogenic gold systems. And so Braylorn Pioneer is a classic orogenic gold system, and it's produced over 4 million ounces of gold. And we're up in the brittle deformation regime that often has antimony associated with it, and hence in what is now considered under this academic kind of research that's occurred starting the early 1900s or early 1990s, culminating in a study done in our camp that shows that the age-date relationships in sulfur isotope, oxygen isotope, and everything put the Reliance camp area at the same age date as Braylorn Pioneer. So this on the left is a figure that kind of shows all the surface channel samples that we collected based on this new work that we did, first systematic work on this project starting in 2020. And we had channel samples on surface that included 23 meters of 4.8 grams at the northwest end, and recent channel samples as we opened the system up to the southeast. And we've now drilled 60 diamond drill holes, and these are the statistics of our diamond drill holes on the right. Of those 60 holes, 41, or about 70%, had significant gold intersections, and that's greater than 3-meter width, in excess of 10 gram meter product. And so we didn't really throw a hole into that classification unless it had at least 3 grams over that 3 meters as well. And so also we've had 11 holes that had really excellent drill intersections between 63 and 420 gram meter product, and that lists 10 of those holes. And you can see very good grades and very significant widths to what we found. And most of these holes that we've drilled to date with intersections average less than 70 meters below surface. So this is a longitudinal showing you that we've defined the system now based on a few drill holes in early stages of drilling, only 2 phases of diamond drilling that we've completed, with drill intersections over 1.5 kilometers of strike along this trend, with us focusing our energy on exploring this Eagle Zone trend, which is about 550 meters. And our plan is to transition this year into a program, starting with one drill rig, testing near surface and opening up this system along trend with big gaps that are undrilled, transitioning with that drill into deep drilling to test the open up this system at depth, and also testing other targets at depth. So just a background, we basically took on this project. It had been explored by a dowser in the mid-1980s, and prior to that there was a number of prospects on the property that were explored for antimony quartz veins, narrow antimony quartz veins, but no drilling on the project until the mid-1980s, and in that period of time a discovery was made at the Imperial Zone, but that exploration tended to focus around that single zone. We took it on and did the first systematic program, first soil sampling program that defined and biogeochemical survey and mapping that defined this alteration zone over 2 kilometers of strike, and it's still open under cover in both directions. Surface channel sampling, I already mentioned some of those good grades. And then 3 phases of RC drilling of about 84 holes, with the majority of those having good intersections. And then the 2 phases of diamond drilling now of 60 diamond drill holes with the statistics, excellent drilling statistics that I've just mentioned. Our focus to date has been the Eagle area discovery, bringing that to a 550 meter to trend, and because of those shallow intersections, there is potential, these are potentially amenable to open pit mining. So our 2023 drilling now opens, shifts to growing that thing on strike and at depth, and turning this in what we hope to be a multi-million ounce gold system, because it is in a multi-million ounce orogenic gold camp. So this just kind of shows you what these strong linears look like. It's a young terrain. This is looking southeast, and you see a strong linear associated with our alteration system, which is a buff coloration shown in the mafic volcanics on the left side of that strong linear, and dominantly sedimentary terrain on the right side of that linear. And within that, there's also feldspar porphyries, all the classic orogenic setting, except that we're up in the brittle regime as opposed to brittle ductile regime of a Braylorn type system. We also have the treasure shear shown on here as one of the other targets we're chasing, but most of our drilling and all of our drilling has been focused, diamond drilling has been focused on this royal shear trend, where we've got gold intersections from this at Diplomat right up to the Eagle South area. The system remains open in both directions. This is right next to the Carpenter Lake, which is a BC Hydro power reservoir, and 5 kilometers away from our project property here is a hydroelectric facility. This shows you what the road outcrop of this kind of zone is. You can dig this out with a shovel. It's just basically a mucky zone. It's not quartz veins, it's breccias. And sometimes there's late sweats of quartz stibnite veins, and there's an antimony signature with it, but also an arsenic signature. And this shows you a road cut right in the talus fines, hosted within an iron carbonate altered mafic volcanics, and that iron carbonate alteration system can be anywhere from 100 to 300 meters wide along that 2 kilometer trend. This was a channel sample that was the one that averaged 4.88 grams per ton over 23.5 meters. So this just shows our structural trend in a plan map with north at the top of the map, roughly ending in the Carpenter Lake Reservoir, which is a BC Hydro reservoir, and open to the southeast, showing the area defined by our Eagle Zone at the south end, where we've now drilled about a 550 meter trend area. It's about 150 meter wide of that shallow dipping shear shown in that last slide, and it averages about 5.17 grams per ton over 9.6 meters of average width in these breccias. That's based on 71 both RC and diamond drill holes over that trend of just the Eagle Zone. Areas between Eagle and Imperial, shown in the other red blob up to the northeast, has not been drilled to test those features. So this is what some of these breccias look like. This is from a drill hole 2120 that averaged 15.7 grams over 24.8 meters. And I think the most important point about this is very consistently mineralized in a multi-phase cataclastite and other breccia, where it's consistently mineralized over that full width with the lowest grade intersection drill core sample of 1.5 to 2 meters of 4.9 grams, with the highest grade sample in there of 27 grams. So every sample is mineralized significantly. It's not narrow intersections that are being spread over this 24.8 meters. This is another example of some of these breccias, and you can see on the left is a lot of those little white fragments in there are quartz vein fragments. So this is related to a quartz vein system, but those quartz veins are being picked up as breccias, as fragments in breccias, and propagating out into lots of regional structural zones. And on the bottom is one of these late coxcomb quartz features that look almost epithermal, but they actually represent epizonal orogenic textures, replacing and brecciating and mineralizing, in this case, a quartz feldspar porphyry that creates the structural weakness for these propagation of these breccias. So this is a bit of a model showing that where we've drilled off the zone primarily is actually just one of these shallow subsidiary shears, which we call the Eagle Zone, and then it goes into the Eagle Feeder Zone, shown in here of a yellow, is what indicates of several veins that are typically crushed and crackle brecciated veins, and the breccias propagate up the margins of those veins. And we have several feeder targets in there and several intersections. Each one of these zones that we've defined is defined by at least 3, possibly 4 of these quartz veins that all have propagating breccias up along their margin. So back to the longitudinal, where we show yellow dots indicating where our soil samples are, and you can see there's areas in between Eagle and Imperial that remain unexplained soil anomalies, and we see those as potentially continuations of at least the feeder zone features that exist along this entire trend and open for a lot of testing. The yellow boxes represent the feeder zone intersections, so we've got some significant intersections in the feeder zone, but not enough density to come up with an average grade and width, whereas the shallower structure has been better drilled because of access, and we're focused now on building out that access and bonding to put in place the locations for the new drilling activity. So this just shows you how open the system is. As I mentioned, the average depth of our intersections was about 70 meters. We've only really literally scratched the surface on this gold system, and we're already on to a pretty significant potential for here, and well on our way to potentially demonstrating this to be at least a 1 million ounce type system already based on our exploration to date. And the focus now is to build on that exploration and grow the system with drilling this coming year. At the Fosterville analogy, we put up that question mark. Well, this just shows you Fosterville, and this has a shallow raking system. We don't know which way our system rakes and plunges. So that's the kind of work we have to define, but as you can see, the average depth is fairly shallow for us, and these kind of systems can be quite large. And Fosterville is a good analogy because it's a finer gold antimony related system near surface, and then transitions down the Swan Zone into a coarse gold type system. So these evolve, these epizonal orogenic systems evolve into coarse gold systems at depth. So all of our work and our drilling to date has been on what we call our Royal Shear Anomaly, but we've opened up this area and now have 5 parallel structures in here that all have antimony type gold occurrences with them, and some preliminary recon type soil and biogeochem we've done has already opened up one of these targets called the Olympic Anomaly that's got a similar kind of strike trend to already what we see at the Royal Shear. So we've got an outstanding new exploration discovery in an historically productive multi-million ounce orogenic gold camp. We've got wide pervasive iron carbonate sericite alteration and sulfidization and breccia and antimony that indicate this epizonal setting like Fosterville. And the model provides potential for a major gold system with depth continuity. Drilling's delivered excellent results. We've already talked about the size to date, and our 2023 drilling program will expand on strike and depth. And those new parallel structures we hope to open up for drilling later in 2024. So corporately, we're a company with about 145 million shares issued and outstanding. 3 insiders own about 55% of the company. We had about 4 million at year end. We haven't completed our financial statements, so we've only show up here the working capital at the end of September, but since then we've done had warrant exercise and a financing that's been completed that gives us in pretty good shape. Well-known people in the business. I've been in the business for 40 years, and others like Rob Peace are well-known in the business as well. And our 2 other big shareholders are Americans, Richard Gilliam and Ross Arnold. Richard in particular built a private coal mining company, which he's since sold. So to touch on our, so why it's not going forward, there it goes. Our heavy rare earth niobium projects located in the southeastern Yukon. It's 90 kilometers from the Beaver River gas fields, which are part of the Liard Basin, and 60 kilometers from an all-weather road just on the BC side of the Yukon border here. It's 100% owned, and we're considering our strategic options for this. It's not a discovery because it's never been drilled. We're just on the early stages of a rare earth niobium system hosted in a cyanite, and a peralkaline cyanite in particular, and sodium metasomatized. It's a Proterozoic age in a thrust window in the basement of these Liard Basin hosting gas sediments. So we've got an altered cyanite there that covers at least 4 square kilometers. Perspective for big soil anomaly, and we've got highly metasomatized cyanide that runs up to 3.5% total rare earths with a 76% heavy rare earth ratio, including up to 1% kind of niobium numbers. And some of these samples run up to 43% zirconium oxide. So it's a hydrothermal zircon type system. This shows you some of what these soil anomalies look like with the rare earth anomaly on the left and the niobium anomaly on the right. And you can see we've compared this to the outline of the Nechalacho peralkaline cyanide complex. You can see there's a lot of room here. The soil anomaly still remains open to expansion. This only covers about 2 square kilometers of the 4 square kilometers of the intrusive. And you can see the terrain boundary from intrusive hosted up in the north top left of the program, showing the elevated rare earth niobium and unelevated in the country rocks to the southeast. So just the purpose of that is just to show that the phenotized rocks and the sodium metasomatism and the fluorite associated with this system is classic for a peralkaline cyanide, heavy rare earth rich system. So we did a bit of LiDAR this year. We plan to do some other work, but we're also at this point focusing on looking at our strategic options for it. It justifies additional soil and rock sampling and some initial drilling. It's never been drilled, these intrusive hosted portions of it. And our Class 1 permit, which does allow some drilling, is just in the renewal phase right now, and we're thinking of going to a much bigger permit. So it warrants drilling and trenching as well. So thanks very much.